We have a mission to create a vibrant, inclusive, and globally competitive economy for New Yorkers. We are investing into New York City's leadership when it comes to people being ideal landing spot for any kind of company that's looking to commercialize their AI solutions.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar. Before we start today's webinar, I would like to briefly note that today marks the 15th anniversary of the Great East Japan earthquake. We remember those who lost their lives and stand in solidarity with the communities that have continued rebuilding over the last 15 years. Now let's begin the webinar. This session is part of the 9JP New York Ecosystem Webinar Series, where we explore how Japanese startups, universities, and research institutions can engage with the innovation ecosystem here in New York. Today, we will focus on a very practical question. How can Japanese startups and research institutions actually begin engaging with the New York ecosystem? To help us explore the topic, we are very pleased to welcome representatives from New York City Economic Development Corporation and our own Nakajima-san from JETRO.
Hi again, Daiki Nakajima, Director of JETRO New York. It's always nice to get engaged in this. Today, we have the pleasure to have Anne-Sophie Mao, and she's been a great partner to JETRO. Not only that, a great friend as we've come along to discover Japan more and more. And so this was a great opportunity for the 9JP community to understand more about New York.
All right, thank you so much for the intro. I'm excited to be part of this.
All right, Anne-Sophie, thank you for coming. So let's start with your presentation.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to present on EDC. This presentation talks for a few minutes about what EDC does and some of the innovation programs and ways in which Japanese companies and Japanese academic institutions can work with us. So first, EDC is the Economic Development Corporation for the City of New York. We have a mission to create a vibrant, inclusive, and globally competitive economy for New Yorkers. So in short, we think about the future of the economy, and we think about the different things that need to be done and to make sure that the economy in New York City remains as competitive and as resilient as it is today. The main tool that we have at our disposal to do this is our real estate portfolio. EDC owns and manages around 66 million square feet or 6 million square meters of real estate across the 5 boroughs, so not just in Manhattan. And we're using that real estate for 4 different purposes. The first one is to strengthen business confidence in New York. So that relates to Japanese international businesses, academic institutions that are interested in connecting with the local ecosystem. For that, we have our business development team that works one-on-one with any organization that's looking to establish a footprint in New York City. We're also building neighborhoods where people like to live, learn, work, and play, so neighborhoods with a high quality of life for New Yorkers. We're looking at delivering large-scale sustainable infrastructure projects. So examples of those include the High Line, but also Hudson Yards. Now a lot of the work that we're doing is located along the Brooklyn waterfront, especially in Sunset Park, but also in the Navy Yard, in case you're familiar with the New York geography. And lastly, we're using our real estate to grow innovation and to grow innovation sectors with a focus on equity that helps us diversify the economy. We have 3 innovation sectors that we focus on. So really the sectors of the future. Those are AI, the green economy, and life sciences. So AI, green economy, life sciences, those are sectors that we know align really well with strengths in the Japanese ecosystem. So that's why we're so excited to be working together with you. Let's see if this works. So this is essentially what I said, but just put on a map. The map shows the different EDC assets. And as you can see, they're pretty well spread out across the 5 boroughs. So you really see that actually the minority of the footprint that we have is located in Manhattan. And that's one of the key things that we want you to take away from this webinar is that what's happening in New York City is not just in Manhattan, but it's spread out really across the 5 boroughs. So overall, EDC manages over 200 properties, a real estate portfolio of 66 million square feet that generates a $9 billion capital budget at $1 billion over the next 9 years, and a $9 billion capital budget annually that we're using to strengthen innovation across the city and invest in our different projects, for example, in life sciences or the green economy. As we're going through this deck, I just want to highlight that we're going to zoom in later on this area here, which is the Sunset Park District, and then also up here in an area which we're calling Kips Bay. It's on the east side of Manhattan. This is where we're building really a hub for life sciences in the city. So just before we dive into more detail, a few numbers on the scale of the economy. I think it's very well aligned with the size of the economy in Tokyo. I know that we're not Tokyo right now, but just to give you a sense of the scale. So if New York City was a country, it would be the 9th largest economy worldwide. So around the same size as the GDP of the country of Canada. New York City is also the most populous city in the US. There's nearly 9 million people living here. There's over 200 languages spoken in the city. New York City is also the city in the world with the highest number of Fortune 500s of all cities. So it's nearly 50 of them. That really are spread out in a range of different industries. Many of those, of course, are in financial services, but there are also some in media, also in architecture, and so on. Really, the backbone of the economy, though, is the small and medium enterprises in the city. So there's nearly 300,000 of them, and 1 in 7 of all businesses, which is nearly 30,000, started just in the past. Also, again, New York City is also a very young city. There's over 100 universities in New York, and over 1 million either current college students or recent graduates that have come out of New York universities. I'll speak now briefly about the strengths of New York City and our innovation sectors, and then I'll talk at the end of this briefly about the academic ecosystem in New York. At EDC, we really think about the city as leading in the city as being very attractive for those 3 sectors because because of the access to capital, customers, talent, and also infrastructure here in the city. So for tech, New York is actually the 2nd largest tech ecosystem globally. The size of the tech workforce here is actually larger than the one for financial services. So as of I think 2 years ago, New York is a tech first city, and we really have seen a lot of growth also in employment in that sector. Within tech, we really focus on AI, and I'll speak in a minute more about that. This is really a sector that's been booming here. And again, as just mentioned before, the sector is really driven by capital here. There's over 1,200 VCs in New York, and there's more VC volume here than in London, Singapore, and Hong Kong combined. And again, similar to all the industries, the tech sector is also very diverse. And that's again because all the diverse legacy industries are integrating tech with their solutions. At EDC, we're also focused on really strengthening the growth of the life sciences sector in New York to make sure that the sector is generating a very substantial economic impact here over the next 10 to 15 years. For us, that means investing in the growth of R&D stage companies and the growth of jobs, and also especially in building out wet and dry lab space across the city. And we have seen that the number of core life sciences businesses in New York has nearly doubled over the past 5 years. The last sector that we're focused on is the green economy. We're really thinking that over the next 10 to 15 years, the size of the green economy will be around the same size as the current tech sector. So we're focused on really growing and really strengthening the sector here through a number of different ways. I'm happy to go into more detail there. But the key event really there is Climate Week, which is happening every September in New York at the same time as the UN General Assembly. This event has really turned into the largest climate tech event, I would say even globally. So this is a great opportunity if you're in the sector to learn more about what's happening. As you have seen before on the map, and as mentioned, we're supporting innovation in 3 ways. The first one is through our real estate portfolio. So this is on the left side here, you see an example of the work that we do in that sense. This is a picture of Cornell Tech. This shows how we are building innovation spaces and providing capital equipment in the tech sector. So Cornell Tech is an example of the largest academic partnership that we have in New York. So that's a partnership between Cornell University and Technion Institute in Israel. I'll talk more about what that looks like in a minute. The second way is through investing in workforce development and entrepreneurship. This is a picture here of our LifeSci NYC internship program, which has given over 1,000 interns in New York the opportunity to connect with and to gain work experience in life science companies across the city. And then last, we're working closely together with industry to create buzz around those innovation sectors. for example, through putting out reports such as our Green Economy Action Plan, which you see here, which really contains the main commitments to grow the green economy, to implement our framework around the green economy, our vision in New York. So I'll dive a little deeper into the three sectors. The first one here is our work around AI. So we have done some research, some digging to really think about where New York's unique strength lies for AI, and we have identified that really is applied AI. So we're really ceding the leadership when it comes to the development and research of large language models to the West Coast, and really are investing into New York City's leadership when it comes to being ideal landing spot for any kind of company that's looking to commercialize their AI solutions, and that's looking to really connect with those legacy industries, those large companies that are all here. So one program that is part of our work around AI is our AI Nexus. This program is a procurement that we closed last year. The goal really here is to accelerate the adoption of AI across key sectors of New York's economy that may otherwise be slow to adopt AI. The program has launched in the beginning of this year and is now run by two operators, which are C10 Labs and Plug and Play. Any company that has some kind of footprint already in New York can apply for this. That includes Japanese companies. The C10 Labs program focuses on deep tech, but the Plug and Play program focuses on supporting innovation within New York's legacy industries. That includes, for example, hospitality, retail, advertising, and professional services. This I just spoke about. This is what Cornell Tech looks like. So Cornell Tech is, as mentioned, one example of the place-based innovation work that EDC does. This opened around 15 years ago and is a campus that's located on Roosevelt Island. For those of you who don't know the New York geography or map so well, Roosevelt Island is an island between Manhattan and Long Island City, or in Queens. So it's this very unique campus that companies can spin out of. Many of those in tech and AI, and this is also where a lot of research labs are located at. The campus is constantly growing, so there's a lot of upcoming opportunities as well. Collaborate with Cornell Tech. Civic Hall is another example. Civic Hall is a space that we opened in November 2023 at Union Square. Union Square is in Lower Manhattan, so in a very central location. This is essentially a digital skills training hub and step-out space for tech entrepreneurs in New York. So there's nearly 1,000 participants now that have received skills training in just the first year and a half or so of operations. And there have been numerous events that have already been facilitated there. So I just spoke about tech, so now I'm speaking briefly about our work focused on life sciences. So this is what life sciences looks like on a map in New York. So the life sciences sector in the city focuses or works as a hub and spokes model. The hub really here is in the Kip Spain area. If you recall, that's the area that I pointed out on the map before. So this is on the east side of Manhattan. It's a very strategic location because it's located along the First Avenue corridor, which is where a lot of the hospitals are located on the Upper East Side, like Mount Sinai, Lenox Hill, and so on, Memorial Sloan Kettering. So it's very well connected with those. And we're transforming an entire city block there over the next 3 years and are turning it into a campus that we're calling SPARK. That's the Science Park and Research Campus. Beyond that, we have a lot of hubs that are spread out across the city. You can see, for example, we have the Chan Zuckerberg BioHub, which focuses on the intersection of AI and the biology of immune cells. That's located near Columbia University. And this is really going to be a main biotech hub. So up here, sorry, I didn't put it out. That's really a main hub here for biotech in the city. And then beyond that, we have a commercial lab space here on the west side. But then really, we have Cure, for example, here, and the Flatiron area, which is a campus that focuses on accelerating medtech and solutions that are focused on medtech. So really, so there's a lot of smaller hubs that focuses on the different life sciences subsectors. It was very exciting. Around a little over a year ago, we hosted a great delegation of Japanese companies that visited a bunch of those hubs to really get a comprehensive understanding of what's happening around life sciences in New York. I know that Japan is very strong too when it comes to innovative materials. So that's why I'm mentioning Gotham Foundry. This is a project that we launched in June last year, so it's pretty young. This is a consortium of 3 different organizations: Columbia University, the Fashion Institute of Technology, and CUNY, which is the City University of New York, which is also the largest college system in the US, with over 250,000 students. This is an interconnected ecosystem that focuses on creating more advanced and sustainable materials for some sectors such as fashion, but also construction and healthcare. Companies and organizations that want to partner with them can just reach out directly to Gotham Foundry, or you can reach out to us and we'd be happy to make the connection. This is another opportunity in which you can work with EDC. This program is called Pilots at BAT Works. It's a little wordy. BAT stands for the Brooklyn Army Terminal. The Brooklyn Army Terminal is a building that's located all the way down in Brooklyn along the water. Brooklyn Army Terminal, BAT, that's why BAT works. This is where we're building a climate innovation hub, and the name of which is BAT Works. And this is where Japanese climate tech companies can pilot their solutions and can really use that asset to test whatever they're looking into in a real world environment. So I'm just going to close off by speaking about academia in New York. I alluded to it before, but New York really is a university town. There's over 100 institutions here that currently have over 500,000 students, and they also employ nearly 150,000 people. That produces a lot of direct economic output. Which is $35 billion in economic output, compared to around $96 billion of economic output that's generated by the tech sector. So it's really it contributes. It's a key component of the New York economy, and the city, as mentioned before, has a very rich history partnering with academia. So there's over 47 active programs and projects with higher education institutions in New York. We have and there's over 109 projects that we have completed. So we also put out our academia report in November 2024 that goes into more detail there, and that really showcases again what an integral part the academic ecosystem is of this within the New York ecosystem, and also, of course, a key component of the New York economy. Our academia strategy so far really consists of 5 key pillars. The first one is on innovation to increase the commercialization of academic R&D. So that, for example, includes our work at Gotham Foundry. The other pillar is to accelerated growth, to strengthen ties between the schools in New York and to attract new schools to the city. So there's a lot of international universities that have opened up hubs in New York. There's, for example, a Spanish business school that just opened their offices, or that opened a hub right by Carnegie Hall. And they're hosting a lot of their delegations there, especially MBAs, but also smaller degrees at that hub in New York. The other pillar is to build an integrated workforce to increase internships in key sectors. This is, for example, an example of this is our Life Sci NYC internship program. The other one is to reinvigorate real estate to address needs around dorms and to attract value from existing properties. So this is the updating work that we do around Cornell Tech. So this is the campus that I highlighted before. You see a picture of the campus here. You see here on the left side of the picture, it was larger. You would see that the skyline of Manhattan is here. And on the other side, you see this is where Queens is. We also work with academic institutions to really, our marketing team also works together with any academic institutions that bring in international collaborations to really highlight the value that those schools bring to New York to international audiences. In terms of companies, there's 5 key ways in which EDC can work, there's 5 key ways in which Japanese companies can work with us. The first one is we'd be happy to meet any international business and trade delegation at our offices or at any site across the city. We've been very excited to have so many great JETRO delegations in New York. It's really been a fantastic partnership and really shows that Japanese companies are a great fit for the New York economy, and that the city really is a wonderful landing pad for any Japanese company that's looking to commercialize. Companies can also participate or apply to participate in our industry programs, such as the piloting program at the Brooklyn Army Terminal. You can rent our office, industrial, real estate, and event spaces across the city. If you have any interest there, please feel free to reach out directly. And then last, if you want to do business with EDC directly, the best way to do so is through our procurement. We release those on a regular basis. You can find out about those through either signing up for our partnerships newsletter, which is linked at the bottom of this slide, or also reaching out to us directly. We also have, again, a very close partnership with JETRO. So any procurements that relate directly to you, we also make sure that they are also raised within JETRO, and that JETRO is also aware of that.
Thank you very much for the insightful presentation. We will now move to the panel discussion, where we will focus on the practical question again. So how can Japanese startups, universities, and research institutions begin engaging with the New York innovation ecosystem? But first, before we start discussion, let me briefly highlight a few recent developments that show the momentum of New York innovation ecosystem. In recent years, New York has become one of the world leading startup hubs with rapid growth, as you have heard from Anne-Sophie, in areas such as AI, life science, and climate tech. The city is also seeing major investment and in innovation infrastructure, including new research facilities and expanded program to support entrepreneurship and international startup. These developments make New York not only for a major global market, but also an increasingly important platform for international innovation and collaboration. And in November 24, NYCEDC signed new partnership agreement with Tokyo to boost economic cooperation. And then Daiki and Anne-Sophie is drivers of this innovation. So I'm glad to have these two guests today. So you guys have been involved with New York ecosystem for a long time. So could you talk a little bit about your experience? What has been successful? What has been challenging?
As you mentioned before, it's what's often not on the radar of entrepreneurs that are thinking about looking at a place where they can scale is that New York really is the second largest tech hub globally. When you think about tech and AI, you think about automatically Silicon Valley. New York really is the place, though, where companies come if they're looking to connect with those industries. This is really the place where the customers and the capital is. So this is something that has worked well and that has really grown exponentially. EDC, the way we go about growing innovation sectors is to think about gaps in the overall ecosystem, and then we make strategic investments that are then amplified by the private sector. And that has really taken off for the tech. Yeah. So really that has worked really well.
How about that? Thank you.
Yeah, been born and raised in New Jersey, which is the next state over, but also working in the city for over 20 years now. A lot has changed. 20 years is a long time. So much has changed. We had many people in the streets who, for the males, it was all suits.
Yeah,
a lot of suits. That's not like that anymore. It was a very financial hub. Even foreign companies, it was all finance related. There isn't a whole lot of tech. We had Silicon Valley, but that was, probably after 2010 when it's really started picking up. So a lot has changed over the years, and I think, for the better. And obviously it's a lot more exciting now that we see not only is it a financial hub, but now it's a tech hub. Now you're seeing so many more big tech corporate companies coming into New York. So make that better, we have EDC, who is now really focusing on bringing that whole innovation hub to New York. So all in all, it's a very exciting time.
Yeah. How about your collaboration with international counterpart? How has that been growing for the last few years, or 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think New York has always been, as we like to say, the most international global
200
city.
languages.
200 languages spoken here. Half the workforce in New York is international. I think the same goes for, I think a little under half the workforce is international, and a little over half the workforce is born abroad. That includes myself. I'm German. Yeah. And I think a lot of the people that work at EDC also have international backgrounds. So that's a very New York City is naturally very international. especially again, I think maybe it has something to do with the general growth of the tech sector, which is, I think, intrinsically international. That has increased the number of international delegations that are coming in. But we really at EDC, we host, I think, over 70 delegations at our offices every year, and that's just the ones that we're hosting. That's not the requests that we're getting. So there's a lot of interest in the work that we're doing, which is exciting for us. I think there's over 10 of those that are Japanese, so I think you're in the top, the top ranking there.
Like, do you feel any changes of talent of the entrepreneurship from Japan or the
I don't have any numbers. That would be interesting to look into the amount of talent, whether that is increased or decreased in New York. We don't. We have an economic research team, but they're not looking at that. I'd love to learn more about that. But I think generally, I think in terms of the attitude, I think and I think that's actually thanks to the work that you do. There's a better understanding of what EDC does and the different ways in which you can tap into the into the ecosystem. Of course, now it's interesting or easy for us to do webinars. We're always excited to be part of this because it's an easy way for us to connect with with you without traveling. And then, of course, I think there's just been a general uptick in terms of people just making the trip here.
How about that? Like, how do you feel about the changes of delegates or entrepreneurship?
Japan was always focusing on the West Coast, right? Popularity amongst the Japanese community to go to the West.
Yeah.
But that's slowly changing, and I feel like, again, we don't have any exact numbers, which would be interesting too for us. But I think we are seeing more and more entrepreneurs coming to New York. Investors in New York are also taking trips out to Japan, which is also important as well for them to understand and see the opportunities.
Yeah.
So, the trend, I think, we are seeing more and more. And I feel like for the Japanese community, many times over, the startups tend to come to Silicon Valley and sort of get exposure into the US startup ecosystem. But at the same time, many people who have stayed here longer then come to New York and realize New York is also a great place too, and they don't want to go back to the West Coast.
Like, is there any way? Like, how can we make them to realize New York first before going to the West Coast?
That's a question to and Sophie, in a sense of more of what are not just the Japanese community but other countries, what are they seeing in New York? How do they perceive New York as an opportunity, and at what stage usually would you see it work?
Yeah. So I think to your point about West Coast to East Coast, actually those kind of businesses are the main generators of leads for us. So mostly tech companies that are moving from the West Coast to New York, or that are opening an additional office in New York. So that's really a key trend that we're seeing, not just for Japan, but for the US and all the other countries that we work with. As you mentioned, New York's Silicon Valley is undoubtedly, I think, the key hub for the development and early stage R&D for AI and for, I think, most tech. But then really, again, all the capital is here. There's over 1,200 VCs here that are in the city. There's a bunch of those legacy industries that are located here. There's more Fortune 500s here than in any other city in the world. And all those companies need to integrate tech within their solutions. So really, New York City really works once companies looking to scale and looking to commercialize, which is why, for example, we have cornered that, or why we have said that the key strength of New York for AI is applied AI, which is whenever AI is applied to real world solutions. So, and that really goes across industries, right? So that also for life sciences, for example, right? That New York is just a very attractive place to test your solutions and to scale them in a real world environment.
But at the same time, you have been working on to accelerate the innovation itself, working with the universities and also creating cure for the startup companies. That has been increasing the number of workforce. Either both working for the startups and also scaling up companies as well, right?
Yeah, again, so EDC looks at the different. So. It's a very fun job. It's not me who's doing that work, but we have a team that thinks about, of course, the future of the economy and that thinks about the different policies, the different programs and sectors that are strategic for us in order to strengthen and diversify the economy. So this is how we're, for example, thinking about the tech sector. This is how we thought about the green economy. And we're thinking about different investments that activate our real estate assets across New York in order to strengthen those innovation industries. So that's, for example, how we had the land. Now I'm talking about tech again, and I mentioned Cornell Tech before. This is how we had the land in Roosevelt Island. And similar for the Navy or for New Lab, in case you're familiar. Those are all projects that speak about the kind of place-based innovation again.
Cornell Tech itself created a lot of startup companies, very innovative, and then also I can feel the dynamism of the school as well, right? So you touched a little bit on the interest of startups in Japan. So you have been taking many investors, even VCs, to the Japan. How interested are the US VCs or accelerators are to Japan?
So very interesting. So right now, good partners of ours, Techstars, which is also headquartered in New York at the moment. Techstars, we have a great partnership with them, and we've built a equity-based program. This week, it just so happens that Techstars is working. They invited their cohorts into New York for the first time. So they're running a 1-week program, and then during that program, David Cohen and others have mentioned, the importance of investors understanding, wherever they're investing in. For Japan, yes, we always love them to come here. We understand that they need to be here and drive the market. However, the investors also need to understand Japan. The investors also need to understand the type of Japanese startups. In order to do that, we need to bring more and more investors to Japan. It's right on. That's what I've been trying to do. And, so I think more and more, and it can be just everybody goes to Japan. Everybody goes to Japan.
Especially Kyoto, Yokohama.
It's a very popular destination, right? So investors love to travel. Sometimes they have a lot of time to travel. So it's good for them to go to Japan and discover. And then it's good for us to, now that we have a sort of a circle of networks who we see, which investors are taking trips to Japan, we try to get them as much exposure while they're in Japan. So that's primarily the importance for me as of now is the more investors see Japan, the more investors see the Japanese startups, they'll start to realize, sure, there might be a time difference, which is the most hardest challenge. You'll never find a solution unless we can time travel, which is another...
We need a new tech.
Another 1,000 years from now. But then the only way to do that also is for the Japanese startups to come to New York and build their businesses here. So it's the importance of working with EDC is just that, and their international landing pad program, and those are crucial to not just us but probably other foreign agencies as well.
No, that's a good segue to talk about the new initiatives, including the one you just mentioned. Can you talk a little bit about the initiatives?
We're really excited about the program, and yes, to Daiki's point, I completely agree. It's great to have a conversation over Teams and of course to call, but really in-person visits are so key to really understanding whether this is the right fit for you. I know it's a very long way, the trip, but I do think it's worth it. And I think, of course, it makes most companies expand here through hiring a local person, and I think you need to have a local presence too in order to really understand and scale successfully here. But I do think that being here and having that exposure is really critical in order to see if this is actually a good idea for you. In terms of our new programs, we're really excited about those. One of them is the International Landing Pad Network. We launched that program in the fall last year. So the key goal of the program is to support 50 growth stage international startups with their expansion to New York City. So any company, they do not have to have, they actually should not not have a New York presence can apply for that program. So if the Japanese company is not in New York, that's exactly the program for them. And if they are accepted, they receive a bunch of free resources. Those include co-working space, those include access to customers, to potential customers, of course, investors, events, technical assistance around immigration, around registering a company, and so on. That program is run by 4 different operators. 2 of those are still accepting applications. The 4 operators are Plug and Play, SOSA, the Clean Fight, and Supermomos in a combination with Lightspeed Ventures, which is, as you know, a large VC. So Plug and Play and the Clean Fight both are still accepting applications. For those of you in New York, we are hosting our official launch event for the International Landing Pad. So I would love to include you there in that, but also beyond that, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of smaller engagements that hopefully you'd be able to engage with.
So how do you see the interest of the your International Landing Pad program from not only about Japan but also other countries?
We've had a lot of interest, yes. So I think it's been great because the pool of applicants and those that have been accepted has been super diverse. We had really applicants and companies that are part of this from Australia, from Spain, from Israel, from Japan, of course, and then from Brazil. So it's really spanned the globe, and that again speaks to the fact that New York City is just a really international city.
Nice. Like any specific stages of the companies, or like research side, or like development side, or commercialization? So
we typically target the program targets Series B+ companies that have raised over at least $5 million. So it's I would say it's low criteria, but they just go to speak to the fact that companies need to have the capital and resources to actually scale.
If you want to bring a few companies from Japan, like what kind of companies you think of? Which apply to
I've
all?
already introduced a few.
Oh, did you?
It's in the works.
Yes.
It's in the works.
Okay, that's good.
No, I think it's opportunity. So it's right spot on where, we've run over 50+ accelerator programs. Right, over the years, and we know how to educate and nurture very young startups, seed level stage, right? However, there's a giant pool of medium-sized startups. Let's just call them your Series A's and up, right? Japan has had a big pool of these startups that they built a good traction record in Japan, but they can't build it in any other countries because Japan is so unique in its own market. So we want to help them. We also have a hard time because they just want traction. They just don't know US. So it was great when we heard about this program because there are companies who are somewhat farther ahead and they want to be actively engaged in the area and New York. So I think if it works out and if there are any Japanese startups that join, I mean that's a great opportunity. And I'd also be interested in seeing the results not just from Japan but other countries. It's unique, I'm assuming, right? Is there?
There's no other program that you can runs now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the main goal really of that program is international. So it's not focused on a specific industry, but it's just the key part of this is just to help international companies scale in New York.
Since you have been working with so many international startups and also delegates, so do you have any advice to Japan, how to further accelerate their endeavor in New York?
Yeah. I'd probably echo a lot of what Murat has said. Okay. Just because and I say it to a lot of delegations, and I don't think it's unique to Japan, is that you just have to be really out there in New York. New York is very international, as I just said, so that also means there's a lot of international companies, there's a lot of competition. And that means that, and I think the same goes for Germans and for Europeans that are not used to selling themselves as much as Americans are, is to really get to not be shy, to go to attend as many events as you can. What I do like about Americans is that if you have a good pitch, they'll listen to you, no matter where you're from. And I think that's an advantage that I think you can always use whenever you go to events. And then, of course, when it comes to New York, I think my advice always is there to go to the event instead of not going to the event, because there's so many of them and the city is so well connected. So there's this is the largest public transit system in the world. So you can get with the subway, you can get to several events in the evening, and you can walk even, and so that's just my advice there is to really use those kind of resources.
Right.
And then for Japanese companies, but I think that's very similar to other countries too, is I think a key advice that I always give them is, I think it's key is to connect with peers. So to connect with other Japanese companies that have gone through that have had a similar experience, because I think there's a lot of learnings that are unique to each country that can apply, and then also again use the resources that are available, like from JETRO, and then also from EDC, of course, we'd be happy to help. And oftentimes companies come to us, I would say 5-10 years after they've been to New York, and we haven't met with them before, and they could have actually used tax incentives that could have applied to them, and that could have lowered their cost of doing business here. And those incentives that could have just applied for it at no cost. So it never hurts to ask.
Right. For EDC, which industry has been the top priority, or moving forward, which one is your primary focus? I mean, you're doing multiple, but I would say which one would be on the top?
I can say I think it's moving back and forth now again, and we see a lot of it is focused on AI. It's really I think it's a key thing. But then also we've just talked about it today, and we've really seen an uptick for life sciences in the city. There's a few conferences that are happening in New York across the year that are big, and those are oftentimes also driving interest. So for example, we have Tech Week that's taking place in June in New York. So this is where we have over 1,000 tech events spread out across the city. So this is a good time as well to connect with the investors and so on. We have Climate Week in September, as I just mentioned. So this is a good time to connect with clean tech companies, or the ecosystem. And then there's New York Bio is the key association for life sciences here. So they're hosting a lot of events. So I think some of it is also events driven, and then of course I want to say, which we're very, very excited about, which is unique about 2026, is that we're hosting the World Cup here in the final. So that's driving also a lot of business interest across the sectors to New York. I mean, there's a few things we're doing around World Cup. The main thing really for us is International Week. I think, but this is this is something that this is a work in progress. So this is also, I think, why we haven't talked in too much detail about it yet. But the key event of International Week is our Choose NYC Summit. So that's taking place on June 23rd. That's our main business summit. Would love to include anyone that's in New York during that time in that event. That's for any business or ecosystem player that's interested in learning more about doing business here. That event brings together the CEOs of companies that we've worked with before. So those examples, they're not confirmed yet, but those could include Chobani, that's an example. Hopefully also someone at a very high level from the municipal administration, hopefully also the president of EDC. And then beyond this Choose NYC Summit, we're hosting a bunch of smaller engagements for international businesses, including tours of the different boroughs of New York. And we are thinking we're doing a networking session with the different operators of the International Landing Pad Network, office hours at our offices. So we're really trying to capture all the visitors that will be in New York during the time that might be interested too in learning more about the business and economic ecosystem here.
You touched a little bit on your presentation, but you're also focusing on the encouraging the female entrepreneurship as well, right?
It's a very timely question. Now this week in New York, and New York is I think also home to the largest diplomatic community in the world, because New York is headquarters of the UN. So that's why we also get a lot of interest. That's why we get a lot of visitors also from high-level public officials, state representatives. This weekend we're hosting the Commission on the Status of Women, which is the largest UN conference focused on gender equality. And this is a great time for us at the moment, where we're hosting a lot of events that are focused on our work. We have a team within EDC, which is called the Women.NYC team, and they're focused on supporting female entrepreneurs from underrepresented backgrounds and areas with getting into our innovation industries. So that includes a network of mentors that women that want to get in our life sciences, for example, in AI, that they can work with. We're hosting digital office hours. Yes, and of course we meet with a lot of international delegations that focus on female entrepreneurs. We had a really cool one from Tokyo at our offices in the beginning of the year. I don't think we've had one from JETRO yet, but maybe we should.
Yeah, working.
That would be great. We'd love to have you. And yeah, so it's of course, I mean, our focus is to build an inclusive economy, and that includes supporting female entrepreneurs.
Like in that aspect, from JETRO perspective, do you have any specific areas you like to strengthen the relationship with the New York CDC?
I think, New York. We have to make New York as a place where you have to come. Every Japanese startup, corporation, small medium enterprises, any industry, they all have to at least come here and see New York, because in any big city in Japan, you're basically similar to New York. Right? Everything is just down the street. Take a train ride and it's there. You don't have to be in, and I'm not hating on any other cities, but Silicon Valley or Chicago, or you have to take a car, drive somewhere, right? It's not that's not New York, and that's not Japan to some extent. So I think there's similarities, and I don't think people realize, New York is actually more welcoming than people imagine or think. Am I correct on that? Is that
No, I think, it's hard to say that coming from a German, but I do think New York is less intimidating. Yeah, I agree with you.
I think, what people don't realize is, you can come and ask for something in New York. You don't be afraid to ask in New York. People will respond, and I think, whether they respond politely is a different story, but they'll give you an honest answer to it. So, I think that, and then you need that. Japanese companies need that, and to see that. And there's a community here for Japan. There's a big community.
True. Yeah. Normally, especially for this webinar, we talk about the entrepreneurship side, but we do have a big corporation, Japanese corporations community here. So for that aspect, as a New York CDC, do you have any request to a Japanese big corporation, global corporation, to support the startup ecosystem coming from Japan?
I think you can flip the question around and say, what are the big corporations that you work with outside of Japan? What are they doing to help their sort of ecosystem?
That's a good question, and I think we should work, look more specifically into that. I think, first of all, we do love working with large Japanese corporates. So we hosted CEO roundtables and are always very interested in learning from them about their growth in the city. It's hard to pinpoint a specific international company that has really, been super. There's many that have, I think, grown pretty successfully here beyond just sponsoring events, even though I think event sponsorships are important. I think it's a bit interesting to see some large corporates involved in our innovation hubs. So an example, of course, is which is, I think, the largest investment that they have in outside of Norway is Equinor, that has invested $1 billion into the New York life sciences ecosystem, and that's building an offshore wind innovation hub along the Brooklyn waterfront, which is an accelerator for companies in this sector to really grow here. So that's been a big one, and then I think there's some other Nordic companies that have really invested quite a lot in our innovation industries to build out entire supply chains that feed into the sector in New York. But I think there's a lot of potential in investing in our innovation hubs and helping build those pipelines of companies that are coming here.
Yeah, for example, Cornell Tech. I think Tata created podium. and supported a lot of like
Yeah.
innovation there.
Yeah.
And also, like I think Verizon has been
Yeah.
hosting a lot of pitch events.
Yeah.
I don't see Japanese company doing that kind of like event
I mean,
often.
And there's definitely openness on the New York side.
Yeah.
We would be more than happy to talk with any of them.
Yeah.
I think we had, I don't know if I can disclose that, but we had a few great conversations after the Japan Innovation Forum that took place in the beginning of this year, where some large Japanese corporates pitched about the different corporate innovation opportunities in New York. So it's been really interesting to see how, and that's to your point actually, how large Japanese corporates think about New York. I think many of them are not aware of the innovation hubs that exist here. So including for life sciences, many of those still look at Boston and just don't know about the kind of support that they could get here. And to that point, we tried to advocate to them, to encourage them to, whenever they're in Boston, to also make a trip down to New York, because it's not that far away. It's just a 3-hour train ride. We'd be more than happy to host them and talk to them about the different opportunities. Yeah, and that is just not just for life sciences, also for maritime innovation. There's a lot of things happening again along the Brooklyn waterfront. Very happy to think about building out a maritime innovation cluster, including with Japanese companies here. So I think there is definitely interest in talking with any Japanese corporate that's looking to explore more, including in retail, for example. We're looking at growing retail, the creative industries here through Retail Hub. There's a lot of ideas, I think, and I think a lot of openness in exploring those in more detail.
Yeah, like that's not only about the big corporations, but also academia too, right? So you mentioned about the collaboration between Korean side with the NYU, for example. That has been a great example. So like how like academia side, like do you have like any recommendation to Japanese universities how to work with the you yourself or like or academia network you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easiest way is, if you are interested in expanding and connecting with the New York ecosystem, would be just to reach out to us. We have a team at EDC that focuses on academia, and then we can really think about how we can work together, because there's a lot of different ways that really depend on the level of engagement that the Japanese university is interested in bringing in. So that can really range from hosting a delegation here to explore New York, because again, I do think it's important just to be here. That can start there, but then also we can think about having a physical presence or an innovation outpost in New York City. So, and there's a lot of not Japanese, but a lot of international universities that have that actually open up all the time. And we'd be happy to help those universities think about a potential space for those universities. Also, of course, to help connect with physical outposts, right? And then of course we can think about those kind of pipelines of students or of startups that come from universities in Japan to New York, exchange programs. This is all things I think we can get really creative here.
Like how about like you, by looking at the like success of the other countries, like how could Japan or like academia or like startups could accelerate the collaboration in New York?
It's a simple answer. You have to be here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you have to be here. You can't just come here 2 weeks and then go back. Come here again for another 2 weeks and go back. You really have to be in New York. You have to see the four seasons. People change amongst the four seasons. Today
You're not talking about hotel, right?
No.
Okay.
Today, I'm pretty sure today, if you walked around and asked the same people the same questions, they're probably a little bit more nicer.
Yeah.
Because we have
The weather is so nice.
The weather is beautiful.
Beautiful.
Spring is here in New York, and
snowing again next week.
Yes. So don't miss out. But then once the weather gets warmer, I feel like New York really flourishes, and people come out, and you really get to see. Just walking around, you get inspired by so many different things, and that's New York. So I think Japanese people also, and expats.
Yeah.
Greatest examples. When they first come here, your first year, you're kind of not used to things. By the time 3 years in, 4 years in, some of them are like, I'd rather stay here and not go back. I don't want to go back, right? Many times this has happened. Yeah. So I'm very confident, whenever people come, is stay. Stay for a bit. You'll see that it is worth staying. There are some outcomes that are worth it. So, and investors love to see that. They see that you're here. It's a lot easier for them to work with you, and you just have to come here. Startups who come here, they'll end up with that same answer. They'll say, I have to come here. I have to live here. And that's what you have to do. It is expensive. We could try and figure that out somehow, but otherwise, I think it's definitely, there are some good results and return on investments.
Sure. Number 2 startup economy in the US, and then the side. So you have seen so many progress and the growth within the New York CDC. How do you see the further growth from in 5 years from here?
It's hard to tell. So I think EDC looks really at the next 20 years of the economy, right? So the sectors that we identified, we make projections for the next 15 years. So I think those will keep being important for us. So we look at the green economy, and our green economy action plan looks at what could the size of the green economy look like in the next 15 years. So I don't think that those sectors of the future will really change, right? It's hard to predict which ones of those will really take off. I think a lot of those are also, the growth of those are also influenced by factors that EDC has no control over. So that makes it a little harder. But I think some things you can't take away from here, right? So we are building physical wet lab space across the city. So that will be there. And the same goes for the green economy. Those hubs, they're physical spaces. They're being built now, right? So
and also diversity, dynamism, and resilience, and what people make strong anyway. So whatever happens in the world, we'll adjust it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I wish I had this graph on me now, but yes, New York City really has a history of bouncing back. So New York City, the graph I'd like to show you is a graph that shows the number of private sector jobs over time, and you can really see how it goes down during every crisis quite significantly. The financial crisis, it goes down, and then it goes down significantly, of course, during COVID. And you see that always the number of private sector jobs after the crisis is always higher than before. So this shows that, again, New York City is great at reinventing itself. We have a great history of also attracting talent. And there's a few people, to Daiki's point, that have come here and that have chosen to stay. To your point, I also want to highlight that we're not looking to take away, right? So we're looking to grow. And I think a company that has a presence here, a university that has a presence here, we don't want that presence to go away in Japan, right? But we think if you expand here, the overall company grows. And I think a company that has a presence here and grows here is always, of course, able to invest back in Japan. So we don't want to, we want this to be a bilateral relationship, because there's a lot that we can learn from Japan as well.
You mentioned a little bit after the COVID, everybody concerned about the vacancy rate in New York City in the office side, but now died nowhere. But at least we have you, so a startup can find out the space, right? So before closing the webinar, so do you have any final say?
I think for me, these webinars are great. I think we expose New York to the community in a very different way than normal, and we certainly enjoy these conversations. But again, New York is it's a special place. It's very hard to explain because there's so much going on here. There's so many people doing so many different things. So it's really hard to just, again, find one specific thing, whether it's top trends in industries or whatever. Maybe everybody is doing something here tremendous. So I think that's my key take on getting to know EDCs. Because there's so much going on. It's hard to disseminate all that, but obviously going to EDC is key. and understanding, and we have a great relationship with
Yeah,
her. So
everybody
we're
has something to
you know,
benefit from New York EDC.
and she's been to Tokyo and hopefully other places in the future. And,
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
It's going to be
Yokohama
special.
especially.
Yes, it's on the list. It's on the list. We have a proposal ready.
We are saying that we cannot finish up the webinar. So do you have any final say?
Yeah, I mean, again, love the relationship that we have with the Japanese ecosystem with JETRO here. Would love to deepen that. We're excited for any Japanese institution, organization that's interested in coming here. As Daiki mentioned, really, don't be afraid. Never hurts to ask. You'll get a response. I think actually New Yorkers are much nicer than you think they are. Those little acts of kindness happened to me a lot, actually. I remember the first time when I got to New York and I was in one of the delis and I had forgotten my wallet and I wanted to get water and someone just bought it for me.
What?
And it was, and things like that happen. Not a lot, but those happen, right? And those little acts, so I think New Yorkers look out for each other. And I think that's actually, makes the city so worthwhile. I love being here. I think there's something for everyone here. I never anticipated before I came here that I would be here for that long. And I think that also goes for Japanese, for Japanese entrepreneurs, academic institutions, that there's definitely a way for them to plug in. And that's what I want to close out with, is that our role at EDC is to really make navigating the economy here easy. So that's what we're here for. We want to be your concierge to some degree, to really, help you find the right ecosystems and to really think about how you can land best. EDC doesn't do everything for sure, but we're pretty well connected, I would say. So we try to, make sure that you're connected with the right organizations that can help you grow here.
Wonderful. Thank you again, Sophie. Thank you for coming, and thank you as always. Thank you for joining as well.
That's always that.
All right. Yes, thank you for listening, watching this webinar in the video channel. For the next webinar, we're thinking about now we learn how to come to the New York, how to benefit from the ecosystem we have with the New York City ADC and others. So now, next webinar we will talk about how to collaborate with corporations in the New York and all over the US. So please join next webinar again. Thank you.
Subway singers echo underground.